If you want to hear a serious update for my Pan That Palette project, then stick around. Hi there, it's Hélène and welcome back, or if it's your first time, welcome to HMM Makeup or Makeup. I am talking about Pan That Palette and I really owe an update because I believe the last update that I offered was April 19th. And we are definitely not April 19th. I think we're June 9th today. Yeah, time to give you a definite update. I have been using the palettes in my Pan That palette. I will go from least to most used over the last period of about 1.5 months. I think that's right, 1.5 months. And yeah, I'm really happy with the fact that I have used a substantial amount of shadows in these three palettes, and I do believe that you will be surprised by my update. Okay, so first off, I want to talk about the Basic B palette by MAC. This is the most recent palette to end up in my Pan That palette efforts, and this is what it looks like. And I did not use a whole lot of this palette, except for these two shadows, which I used quite a bit. And I think that those are the ones that I really used the most. I did use the black once or twice, just utilitarian, not so much utilitarian purpose and not so much to try to pan the palette. It just happened to be, I remember there was a matte black and I went for it. And this highlighter is going to be definitely front and center when I finish another highlighter that I will show you shortly. I do really like this palette, and I wanted to finish another palette in the trio that I have of Pan That palettes. And the reason that I'm not in a big hurry to get really deep into this one is because I was trying to finish another palette that had a number of similar types of shadows in it, in that these types of shadows were part of the Pan That palette in the Smashbox Matte Exposure, and so I was not in need of getting into this palette until I was further into the Smashbox Matte Exposure, which has definitely happened at this point. So did I use a few shadows in here a number of times? Yes. Did I make a huge amount of progress? No, because that was not my number one focus. I wanted to get back down to 2 palettes from 3, and so that was my absolute focus, and I'm so close to being there that I want to show you the second of 3 palettes and leave the best for last. Now for the second most used palette, and it would be the Metal Matte from KVD Vegan Beauty, I think is what it was called at the time this palette released. And it is really a very interesting palette. And I initially focused in this palette on this color and then realized, you know, this is really an easy color, and I have a number of other colors that are light colors in the Basic B, and I had some additional light colors in the Smashbox Matte Exposure. So in this palette now, I have more so focused on these two for deepening the outer lid, and I've focused on this one, and this one now and again for either on the lid colors or brow bone highlight, that kind of a thing, which I can do with these two over here. But my biggest usage right now has been these two by far, and I've also used these two for the most part. A little bit of dabbling over here, but really I would say that these 4 are the ones that I'm using the most. And really these guys are just so easy to use. I'm going to save them for later and really kind of focus on the darker, deeper mattes. And these guys are, they're a no-brainer when I just want to pop up color. It's pretty easy to come in here and pick one of those. So I'm quite happy with that. I think that you can see the amount of wear that I'm starting to get, especially in these 3 pans, and pretty like I said, pretty happy about that. Oak is one that I really quite like. It has replaced one that I was using in the Smashbox Matte Exposure that I finished. And this one is another beautiful deep color that makes it easy to use. And so I'm not in a hurry to look for other colors of that type to continue using, because I do really like deep mattes. And these are definitely not disappointing me in the slightest. And I just pair this palette along with whatever it is that I'm trying to use. Now, for the third of the three palettes, I want to talk about a couple things. Now, the Smashbox Matte Exposure, and I'm not going to show you the palette right away, I had in the top left-hand corner, I can put a picture of what it looked like before, had 2 pans of Buxom highlighter. So this was a highlighter that I took out of a pan, and Buxom pans tend to be pretty big. Took out of the Buxom pan and distributed in 2 of the pans that were in the Smashbox Matte Exposure. I enjoyed them there. I used them a lot. When I do use the Smashbox Matte Exposure, the Buxom highlighter that I had transferred into the Smashbox Matte Exposure, this is what it looks like. So inner to 2/3 of the lid, it is the Buxom highlighter. And I have since removed it from the palette and put it into this container, repurposed Ulla Henriksen container. And it was about 2/3 full. And now this is all that I have left. So I use, pardon my fingers, they're a little bit rough right now. I've been gardening. What is left here, which I said was about half or 2/3 of the way full, is I'm using it as, you can see it right there, I've got quite a shiny cheek. I use it as highlighter on my cheekbone. I use it as highlighter, which I have right now, on my brow bone. And now and again, I use it for a few other purposes on my face, but those are the 2 main purposes. And I really am enjoying it. I really am enjoying it in loose form. That was kind of striking to me how much I'm enjoying a loose highlighter, so that is something I'm learning about myself. And I'm going to be quite sad when it's gone, because I'm really enjoying it in this format. And it's just by fluke that I figured out that I like the Buxom highlighter in that fashion, and it will be gone sooner than later. I expect the next Pan That Palette update that this is going to be gone. And that's okay, that's okay. And really, when it comes down to it, the highlighter that is in the Basic B from MAC is huge, and I will not have a lack of highlighter to pan when the Buxom highlighter is gone. And the Buxom highlighter is just a bonus, right? This was not part of any of the palettes that I had in the Pan That palette. It was just a rogue highlighter that ended up coming into the fold just by choice. Now let's talk about the big one, the big kahuna, and it is the Smashbox Matte Exposure. This is a palette that I have been dragging along for years now. And it is a palette that I was absolutely adamant I wanted to finish. And also, I did have plans to repurpose this packaging because it is extremely solid, and I feel confident that I would be able to repress shadows in here and be able to take with some favorite shadows that maybe are singles, or maybe are part of palettes that I'm decluttering, but I want to keep a few shadows. This is really what I want to use this palette for eventually. And I'm just spoiling it for you. This is all that is left of this palette. It is a significant change from the previous update, because it is down to 1/3 of the shadow that was in here. It is amazing to me that that is all that is left. I will be done, based on my usage, I will be done with this palette next month, which will mean that I only have 2 palettes that I am focusing on for Pan That Palette efforts. And if I take a look at the 2 palettes that I have, they don't have a ton of overlap, which I'm really excited about, because it makes it easier to make progress in both palettes. So if we take a look at the two palettes, other than the deep burgundy, there really isn't a whole lot of duplication, except for maybe the very, very light shadows, which in my opinion, light shadows are really easy to use because they can be used in a number of fashions, and they can also be used to lighten up deeper shadows. So I feel super confident with the number of pans that I have to deal with, 10 in this one, and it's what, 3, 6, 9 in the other, so a total of 19 pans, although this one, as I've said before, is huge. But I don't feel like there's a ton of overlap. I think that I can do a really great amount of progress on these two palettes, and that given the diversity of colors and the fact that I have one that is more warm leaning and one that is more cool leaning, I won't really be bored with these, and I can also use a number of the shadows in these palettes and pair them with singles or other palettes that I'm wanting to use. So I'm really pleased that next month I will be done with this palette, at least in its current iteration. Yeah, and this this Franken shadow that I made here, it was a mix of two existing shadows in the Smashbox Matte Exposure, and I made such a good decision when I decided to combine those two shadows into that one color. It's been a terrific base. I actually have that as the crease color in my look today, and the Buxom highlighter that I talked about before, I have it here and here. It's been so lovely, and the liner that I have on the lower lash line and to deepen the outer corner is the deep chocolate brown that I showed you in the metal matte. Yeah, it's been really nice. So the update for next time is going to be that this palette is completely empty, and that there is going to be some significant progress in these two pans, at least in this palette. So what a change. I'm really happy that there is a change of the guards, so to speak, that the Smashbox Matte Exposure, as much as that palette has been so good to me, the mattes were amazing. It lasted for so long. I'm really happy with that workhorse of a palette, and I'm also happy to be able to do it justice and finish all of it, and I'm really looking forward to digging into the Basic B from MAC and the Metal Matte from KVD Vegan Beauty, as it was known at the time. Let me know if you have any tips or tricks for making the best use of eyeshadows that we're trying to pan, and if you have tackled either one or both of these palettes, I would love to hear what your suggestions are for pairings or for approaching these palettes, and like I said, making the best use of them. It's a big change. It feels like moving on from a legacy of that Smashbox Matte Exposure palette. I mean, it has been with me since the beginning of my YouTube channel. And yeah, I look forward to seeing how I'm going to progress with the two palettes that I have left to finish, because I consider the Smashbox Matte Exposure pretty much done. And that is it. If you wish to take a look at the progress pictures, they are coming right up. But apart from that, I will say thank you so much for watching this update, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. But for now, take care. it. I am so close. I'm so close. I can taste victory. This palette has been with me for ages, a long time. Some people are amazing at finishing eyeshadows. I don't see how I could do it without digging through pan for no reason. So that is just not what I'm going to try. I use it as I use it, and it takes the time it takes is the way I see it. I also don't like to waste stuff, and if I feel I'm wasting stuff, I feel very guilty, even though I have a lot to get through. But yeah, let me know if you are panning a palette yourself. I would love to hear your approach and what you're panning. And if you have any questions or comments regarding panning on any other level, I would love to hear from you, or any other questions or comments you have. With that, I will say thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it every single time. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. But for now, take care.